All right, now, welcome to the Scorched Earth Political Podcast. For Wednesday, April 16th, we made it through tax day. Kumbaya, right? I didn't think we'd do it. Actually, we're almost at, what are we at? February, March, April, almost 3 months. Almost the 100-day mark. I wonder, how they all talk about after FDR, getting the 100 days and how much you accomplish. It always seems to be the mantra of a new administration. I wonder what the Trump administration is going to look back on their first 100 days. Executive orders, I guess, inhumanely deporting people to San Salvadorian prisons. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But welcome one and all, sinner and saint, friend and foe. We are here to give you the latest little things that we pick up in the news and such worth. We're getting new people every day. Usually I start out with a little life story, trying to ease into it before the apocalypse starts to happen. And this may be one of our last podcasts. It's been a nice run. We're getting close to 100 episodes, which amazing, but I think it might be over. And you have people you care about, and you have people you love and cherish, especially friends, and they just can't see it. They can't see destructive behavior. Now, typically when we think about this, we think about, the Nick Cage character in Leaving Las Vegas. We think Johnny Depp and Blow, Not all destructive behavior is so obvious. But as friends, we need to step in and help them because they're beautiful people. But how do you do that? And I've been contemplating this for a couple hours now. And like I've said, this show wouldn't exist without super producer Stacy. She just a genius. Just a bloody genius, we came into this and I asked her, and she was very, very kind and gracious, and helped work through all the technical problems. Because literally, I don't know how to even turn on my iPhone. When this started, I had a Samsung. I can hear you laughing. And now, I can actually turn on the iPhone. So, hey, we got that going for us, right? Maybe if you put me in a group of 6-year-old kids, I would literally be the most technologically deficient. There is no doubt. They'd be whipping through those iPads, iMacs, cell phones, whatever. Me? Nah. Barely know. Give me a stick figure, give me a pen, give me a piece of paper, I'll get that all figured out for you. Maybe. But Stacy is just amazingly figured out all the issues that came. And you think there's not that many issues. Trust me. It's like building a house. There's not that many issues until you break ground. And then there's a million of them. That's why you hire contractors. That's why you hire superintendents and architects. You don't do it because you're trying to blow up the budget. So I had a meeting today with Stacy. She set up the new computer. Everything seems to be working really great. A little different than the other computers. I'm, like a fish out of water. But you know what? We'll figure it out, right? So we go through it, and she's trying to show me things, but she's doing it with kid gloves, right? Because she doesn't want me to get overwhelmed. Nobody wants to see a grown man cry, right? I mean, come on. Well, maybe. And so we get to the end, and like I've talked about before, she does these squirrel videos. And the squirrel is Blackie. Okay? I still don't understand why it's called Blackie, because it's all brown. But, hey, you know how women can see something and it has a different color than men see? Like, they like, oh, look at that. That's hunter green. You look at it and go, that looks like purple. And they're like, no, that's mauve. And you're like, oh, Thought that was brown. I was told that I had a sweater on a couple weeks ago. It was oatmeal brown. I thought it was tan. Okay? Hey, don't hate me, okay? Don't hate me. Just don't take me to the paint department at Lowe's. I'm going to be in some big trouble there. 600 different colors. Scott and I on the other sports podcast talk about that all the time. Yeah, don't give me the color swatches. Don't do that, right? So we get done, and she talks about that she's getting all these views and thousands of views for her and Blackie, but she says, Blackie is doing something weird. Okay, this is a wild squirrel in nature. Okay, this isn't a pet squirrel. This isn't a zoo squirrel. I don't even think there is zoo squirrels, but let's say there is. She says, dude, it's doing something weird. All right. I literally am fascinated. So she says, you know what he's doing? I feed him. I said, yeah. And now he isn't just going to my hand. He is actually coming and sitting in my lap. At that moment, I knew we had to do a squirrel intervention. We're going to have to get her family and loved ones together, and we're just going to have to say, Stacy, it's a wild animal. It's a wild animal. Hello? If you feed it every day, it's going to become attached to you. Just like a kid does. Just like the beautiful dog, the beautiful cat. I am just thankful that we're able to do this intervention before she starts feeding animals at the zoo. Oh, look at the lion. Oh, look, I keep feeding it. Oh, wow. Seems like it's getting a little aggressive. How about the bear? How about the crocodile? We got to help her. If I had any technology sense, I'd start a GoFundMe. So she can, do some squirrel rehab. I don't know if Stacy's going to listen to this, but Stacy, it's a wild damn animal. Okay? It's going to get attached when you feed it. Have you ever been in a relationship where somebody got attached to you only because, not because they loved you, not because they cared, but because you fed them? I got a cousin like that. Came over for 2 weeks, stayed 6 months. I still think he might be on the couch somewhere. Don't know. All right. Rock and roll. Let's burn this mother effer down, okay? Taking no prisoners, telling no lies on this beautiful April 16th, 2025. All right. Seems like the Trump administration has doubled down on Harvard University. All right. Seems like they want to withhold $2.2 billion in funding for Harvard University because Harvard isn't doing, quote unquote, enough to crack down on anti-Semitism. And I have said in previous podcasts, and believe me, I'm no fan of the administration, right? But this is a brilliant move that they are taking legal First Amendment protests that are against the incredible Israeli assault on the women and children of Palestine and viewing it in the frame of it's anti-Semitism. You got to give the devil his due on this one. It's a BS argument. It is. It has nothing to do with the First Amendment, but hey, let's roll. Let's roll. So the Trump administration refused to apologize, or asked Harvard to apologize Tuesday, and questioned the purpose of them federally funding the $2.2 billion in grants that they're giving to Harvard. Now, from what I understand, most of these grants are scientific research that is going to better America. Why is America better than China? Why is America better than Europe? Because of the research that comes out of our universities and public schools. Okay? It's what it is. Why are we ahead of China? Because of research, science, biomedical research. That is what keeps us ahead. I don't even know how far ahead we really are anymore. That's something maybe we're going to talk about tomorrow. You know, we'll see. Carolyn Levitt, I really want to see somebody question whether she's a DEI hire. Get me into the White House press briefing room so I can put my hand up and say, what are your qualifications at 27 to be the White House spokesperson? Well, you know, she married a 50-year-old who's a multimillionaire and donated $5 million to Trump. I'm sure that had nothing to do with it. You know, I don't want to even go any farther down the rabbit hole, right? Because then, you know, I think there's enough misogyny in this world. And I don't want to say anything derogatory about the lady because then it gets applied to all the other hardworking women out there who make America great. And I love them all. You know, it is funny, though, how if you say something derogatory, you know, the right has such a great job of just slandering everybody and impugning all the great work that women do and how America do make this country great. All right. So Carolyn Levitt was pressed on Donald Trump's threat on Tuesday to tax Harvard as a political entity and remove its tax-exempt status. Let's look at that line for a second, please. Why in this country are we letting churches and Christian organizations get a pass on that when they're out there openly politicking for one party? Explain that to me. I think anybody with a modicum of intelligence, which everybody in this audience is obviously smarter than the average person because you're way ahead of the curve. In 2 years, went on the biggest political podcast in the world. You can go, hey, I was there. I was subscriber 12. But how come, what percent do you think of these Christian organizations that are politically oriented are on the Republican side? 90%? You know, in big cities, we have some churches that lean towards the liberal side, which I never understood. If Jesus was around, would he want to feed the poor? Would he want to feed the hungry? Would he want to help women's rights? Would he want to help transgender rights? Would he want to help gay rights? My dad, a deeply Catholic man who interacted frequently with Jesuits who are considered the intellectuals of the Catholic Church, said one of the apostles was gay. Jesus was hanging out with prostitutes, Mary Magdalene. He didn't care. He cared about the character of their content, the content of their character. I know I'm butchering the beautiful Martin Luther King, but at the end of the day, you know, okay, you want to act like abortion, women's rights is the only issue. What are you saying on death row? What are you saying about the death penalty? What are you saying about a party that sent 5,000 American troops to die in the sands of the Middle East? Do you care about life now? Do you give a rat's ass about them? Nah. Let's just keep the war machine going, right? Hey, we're going to send troops over there to occupy Gaza. We're going to clean it out, right? We're going to relocate those Palestinians to the middle of the Egyptian desert. Lucky them. Should be great. We're going to throw 2 porta potties in there, and we're going to give them a bunch of framed pictures of the new Trump Tower out there in Beirut. Gonna be fantastic. God, what a president. What a goddamn president. Carolyn Levitt went on to say that Trump wants to see Harvard apologize, and Harvard should apologize for the egregious anti-Semitism that took place on the college campus against Jewish American students. Now, boy, we've come a long way from the 60s. We've come a long way, baby. We've come a long way. Levitt also pointed out that what she described as Harvard's failure to discipline students, wait for this, if you're drinking something like I'm going to, stop, because you're gonna spit it out, right? failure to discipline students involved in an encampment on campus, and the disruption of classes. So now you can't have a protest that disrupts classes or you're anti-Semitic. Wow. Wow. Let me see if I have a little understanding about this. So you're telling me that people are using First Amendment rights, and they're protesting Israel's occupation and offensive military capability in Palestine, but we don't have a problem with what happened on January 6, 2021. No disruption there? They were just trying to kill Mike Pence. Huh. Wow. Go figure. Go figure. Right? They're trying to kill Mike Pence. Hang Mike Pence. Nah, no disruption there. The senators were running out the back door. They were heading to the parking garage for their lives. No disruption. You know what we're going to do? We're going to pardon them. We're going to pardon those 1,600 people who were criminally convicted. Not even the other ones who didn't get criminally convicted. Seditious conspiracy, no big deal here. You can go ahead and get a pass, buddy. Terrio, don't you worry about it, buddy. We'll just wait until the next Democrat comes in. We'll take care of that. Yeah. All right. So Levitt ended her little soliloquy with, she described as Harvard's failure to discipline him. And she says the president believes Harvard should apologize to its Jewish American students for allowing such egregious behavior. This is a president who didn't apologize for standing with the white supremacists at Charlottesville, Virginia. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Nothing to see there. All right? Let's talk about tariffs. Odd things in the news. So we have Howard Lufnick saying that he wants iPhones to come back to America so we can screw in the tiny little screws. Because, I know a lot of parents who say, you know what, I hope my kid grows up to someone who can screw in tiny little screws. If anybody is out there who says that, could you leave a comment for me or something so I can identify that one person in America? Besides, I forgot to say hit like and subscribe. See how I do that so smoothly? It's just so effortless. It's like Bean trying to walk across the room. So we got a little information today. Seems like China doesn't seem to really take too well to the tariffs. Howard Lufnick, Peter Navarro, they say, they have this perception that China really, really needs us, that we are the biggest consumer of Chinese products, and that's absolutely not true. The Pan-Pacific Agreement was a great agreement by our great president, Barack Obama, because it actually got us to the forefront of trade in the Southeast Asian corridor. Now, after Trump won, where he started to disband that, and now it's pretty much fallen on eggshells and it's been destroyed, China's number one trading partner is those countries in Southeast Asia. Okay? Something like, I should have the numbers here. I'm gonna butcher them. I think it's like 1.1 trillion. The EU came in second. They were at like 900 billion. And the United States was third at 700 billion. So yeah, we do have some leverage, but what leverage is it? Because today he says we have tariffs, tomorrow he gives them an exemption. We could talk about one day about, really the way he should have approached it is to get China, let China deal with the small and stuff. And that's actually what he did in his first term and what Biden did. It's like somebody said today, Trump is the wrong answer to the right question. And I think we all understand China is a bad actor on the world trade scene. They are. And there should be some adjustments, let's call it that. But I think the way they're doing it is incorrect. Really, and I heard a couple podcasts on this, and it's pretty brilliant, that they said, we should invite Chinese companies into America to build the infrastructure that we need to, quote unquote, get parts. Instead of just doing tariffs, have the Chinese companies come in here and employ Americans and build the logistical supply chain, whatever you want to call it. I know nobody's going to do it because there's so much anti-Chinese sentiment out there, xenophobia, whatever. Okay, whatever. But to me, I'm looking at the numbers, and yeah, China, should be some adjustments. I'm not going to argue, but you know what? Look at China. Remember this, and this is a big thing. Who do you think can handle more pain? The U.S. or China? Okay? Let's frame it in a cultural standpoint. When we were in Vietnam, we lost 50,000 troops, which is terrible. They lost over 1 million. Viet Cong, soldiers, everybody. We said, Uncle. We ran. And I'm glad we did. We don't need any more soldiers dying in Southeast Asia, right? We're dealing with that same mentality, right? We're living in a society where if you come home and your internet is buffering, you're hot, you're pissed. You're telling me this society, and it's great. It's great to have a first world society, okay? But you're telling me this society where if you want to watch a TV program, and like me, I don't get any sound, I'm calling the cable company right now. I ain't waiting. I ain't doing that. My power goes out for an hour. Oh my God. You'd have thought it was a book out of, Revelations. Oh, the end of the world's here. I've been out to Coachella when the Wi-Fi went down in that town. You want to see some pissed off kids? Take their Wi-Fi away. And you're telling me we're gonna outlast China? Yeah. Hopes and prayers. Hopes and prayers. So China announced that it canceled all plane orders from Boeing. Seems like this is a little payback for the 145% tariffs that Trump imposed last week on Chinese goods. China canceled the purchase of the next 8,830 Boeing planes over the next 20 years. Let's make sure we got those screws in tight, guys. Right? Boeing stock has plummeted. Experts are warning that the 150,000 employees and 1.6 million other jobs that are associated with the supply chain of Boeing are at risk. This just in, European air maker Airbus, which is their biggest competition, their stock rose, especially in after-hour trading. All right, we're going to go to the final cute little story. The tariffs, you think and you think it's only about trade, but man, it ripples across a lot of different spectrums. It really does, right? So the Hong Kong Post, the postal service in the semi-autonomous Chinese city of Hong Kong. I mean, I don't even know why we're calling it semi-autonomous, but okay, let's go with that theory, right? Like they can really do what they want. Will stop handling packages coming or going to the United States amid the escalating trade war. Oh, wow. Here we go. Guess DHL stock. Buy DHL stock, I guess. If I had a Twitter account, I'd tell you to do it, right? I think DHL is the big one on the international front. In a statement post Wednesday announcing the decision, the government of Hong Kong cited President Trump's tariffs last week and the so-called D-Minis exception for postal items sent from this city to the United States. Now, I didn't even know about this. That's why you come here, so I can give you the info you didn't even know, right? What is a D-Mini? I think that was in an Austin Powers, right? Oh, no, that was Mini-Me. Okay, it wasn't a D-Mini. Okay? Hey, might be a new dance move. Hey, like I've told you, I'm more than a pretty face. Okay? Don't hate. Hater. Okay. The Postal Service will stop accepting packages transported by sea with immediate effect and stopped taking airborne packages on April 27th. The Hong Kong government said on Wednesday in a statement, all right, things going good. Things are going good. On April 8th, Trump signed the executive order tripling tariffs on goods worth less than $100. Now, what I did not know, and I thought it was just Temu, but obviously it's these other ones I'm going to list. If you got $800 or less worth of goods from their form of Amazon, you didn't have to pay any tariffs. Okay, I don't know what the advantage is of Temu versus Amazon. If you know, leave me a comment. Give me some information. I really don't know what that difference is, but it does seem like all the, like I like to call them, the youngins, seem to be gravitating towards the TikToks and the Temus and all that stuff. Buy American. As it stands, packages under 800 have been exempt from the tariffs, right? Up until now. Initially, those goods were set to face tariffs of 30% come May 2nd, but Trump's latest executive orders hiked the rates to 120% last week. Right on, buddy. If you can get the economy to accelerate that quickly, I'd really appreciate that. It seems like from 30 to 120. My 401k is going from 120 down to 30. Maybe we could work on that, Don. Instead of you trying to fix Live Golf and go to UFC and go to the Super Bowl, maybe you want to just, cut back on 54 holes of golf every day and maybe goddamn deal with the economy. Just a thought. Just a thought. Seems like this is going to impact Americans. Hold with me here. Who buy from sites Shine, I don't even know what that is, or Sheen, Temu, and AliExpress. Yeah. So we got that. Don't you fret, though. President got a birdie today. That's all that matters. Actually, a birdie is 1 under par. So if you have a par 4, you get a 3, you get a birdie. He actually got an 8, but he just wrote a 3. That's a little cheating, right? Besides, I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg could cover the bill. Don't you fret there, everybody. All right, that's it for today. I appreciate you. I love you all. Just remember, we're all in this together. We're going to win because we're on the side of right. Okay, we're going to fight for democracy. I love it that we have rallies every week. I think there's another one this week I'm going to be going to. That Bernie rally, man. He showed up at Coachella last Saturday night. God bless him. Man, I'm telling you, that guy is the rock star of all rock stars. It is amazing, though, in our politically progressive party that the guy with the new ideas is an 81-year-old white guy. All right, man, we might have to work on that in the coming years. All right, if you could, hit like and subscribe, leave some comments, and thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.